people are kind of writing it off, even though the Eagles are 5-0, Cowboys are 4-1, Giants are 4-1. I heard people tell me this yesterday. Well, who have the Eagles beaten? I said, well, one, the Vikings are 4-1, and you demolished them, so there you go. Gill in the house Monday, so we always have Mike Gill on. I'll be on Mike Gill's show later. Mike, I got to apologize to you, though, for not being able to come on Friday. I was caught in Phillies fever for the moment, and I thought that game would be long over by 5:30.
We figured that. We were dancing around it ourselves, so we had it on. We were kind of half doing a show, half watching, half kind of having a watch party. And the times for the games in this round are not much better. So,
no, I'm not a fan of the afternoon games, but we can celebrate a Phillies win all week. But it's Victory Monday. And
hey, let me tell you, this is interesting. The Phillies are playing the Braves, and it's Dallas week. What are people more into right now? I mean, I remember I've been on the air for a while. I remember in like 2009. The Phillies were in the playoffs, and the Eagles played in consecutive weeks, New York and Dallas. And not a lot of interest on the football. When those Phillies games were happening, this is Dallas week. It's 4-1, 5-0. You got the Giants 4-1. I mean, this is a big week, and yet the Phillies are now starting to grab some of the attention.
I think this city, though, is caught in both because the Phillies are playing with house money against the Braves, who they probably shouldn't beat, but they're going to have a home playoff game at Citizens Bank Park for the first time since 2011. That's going to be Friday. And if it does go to Game 4, you're going to have that Saturday. And then you got Sunday Night Football at the Link, Eagles-Cowboys, the first time both teams have entered this game on a 4+ game win streak since 1992, Mike.
You could have a Game 5 to decide the series on the same day.
By the way, what do you do about that? Do you play – like, does Fox – say, hey, we're going to play this game at night, or are you going to make that an afternoon game?
I don't know. I mean, if you're baseball, you want prime time, I would guess, but you're going to put the prime time Game 5 Phillies with Philadelphia in it up against the Eagles at the same time to try. I mean, I don't know. That's not an envious situation for baseball there. They got unfortunately bounced by the fact they had the lockout. So everything got pushed back by a couple extra days, and it's put them in this situation. If you look at that American League schedule, though, they have a couple more days off in between. The National League, they play Tuesday, Wednesday, they're off Thursday, then they play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's not as many days off in the National League side. I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't get that here. Like, I initially thought Game 5 was Monday, but I digress. There's a big game Sunday night. I just need to know your thoughts, though, on what you saw. I'm going to start with the Cowboys here because I thought the Cowboys played extremely well yesterday in a lot of areas of this game, especially on defense, especially around the football. But there's no way Cooper Rush could start if Dak Prescott's healthy this week, right?
I don't want to say no way. I don't think Dak's going to be ready to play. Look, I don't think Cooper Rush is why they're winning these games. I actually love Dallas on the money line. I thought they are just a better team right now. The Rams are a mess. Their offense is a mess. But Dallas defense is that good. Even if the Rams offense was average right now or just a good offense, which there haven't been, Dallas's defense is legit. They're legit. One of the Rams struggle. Their offensive line has problems. Where did Dallas give you problems? They get to the quarterback. Their defense is really, really good. I think the difference is how are they going to coach that offense when Dak Prescott returns? Tony Pollard had a big game yesterday. They ran the ball well. I think Cooper Rush, correct me if I'm wrong, had like 10 completions yesterday. You can't win like that long term. So no, I don't think Dak's going to be ready, but I don't think it's preposterous to replace Cooper Rush because you're not getting enough from your offense right now. You're just not. Now, could this team in this year win like that? I don't think there's a challenger anywhere in the NFC. I mean, it's Philadelphia, it's Dallas, and I think it looks like a little bit of a drop-off after that.
I think so, too. Right now, I got to say, I think this is the NFC Championship game preview. I don't want to hear about the Packers right now. The Giants beat them pretty good in the second half on Sunday. the Buccaneers got a gift, rough in the passer call, to survive the Falcons. Look, the Buccaneers they're going to be in the mix because they're the Buccaneers. They got Tom Brady. But overall, the NFC West, to me, it looks like the 49ers are the best team, but they played the Panthers. And the Rams just don't have an offensive line. This is how the Cowboys are going to win football games. If you have a bad offensive line, you might as well just hit the money line on the Cowboys.
And most teams do. That's the thing. And the Eagles are very similar. I mean, when you have a bad offensive line, the Eagles get to you. They don't have to blitz. They can get to the quarterback without blitzing. That's what John Gannon likes to do. When a team has an okay or average to, or a good offensive line, that's where the Eagles have to get a little bit more creative. They have problems getting to the quarterback. But most teams don't have good offensive lines. This league is littered with awful offensive line play. The Eagles are one of the outliers that have this really good offensive line that was banged up yesterday. It was part of the reason why I thought their offense looked a little bit out of sync and out of sorts, and we'll get to that, I'm sure. But look, Dallas is, over the years, they have been the most talented team, sometimes most definitively in the division, many times in the conference. They have been one of the worst, most poorly coached teams. Well, Mike McCarthy is getting out of the way right now, and he is allowing Dan Quinn to excel on defense, and Kellen Moore has done a really good job of scaling their offense back and allowing it to be what it should be, more of a run-oriented, time-consuming, let the defense get some takeaways for us. That's what their offense should be right now. But they are generally the most talented team, but the most poorly coached team. The coaching isn't getting in the way right now.
Yeah, it's weird too, right? Because when you have a franchise quarterback, you're like, okay, we're paying this guy $40 million a year. We got to throw the football 40 times because that's what we have to do. And I think a lot of teams fall in the trap of that. Dallas isn't doing that with Cooper Rush. And look, I don't think Rush played well at all yesterday. He had 2 fumbles. One he was lucky to recover. The Rams were just so porous offensively, and Dallas's defensive line was getting to Matthew Stafford left and right. I don't want to hear about Matthew Stafford's injuries, even though he is hurt. The bottom line is the Rams can't protect him. Sean McVay, for some reason, just doesn't run Cam Akers as much as he should. And outside of Cooper Kupp, who does this team throw to? I can't even tell you who their number 2 receiver is most weeks, and I'm pretty in on with the Rams. It's just they need Odell Beckham.
Well, what happened with Allen Robinson? They spent some money, brought him out, can't get in the ball. They don't run the ball because they can't block. Their offensive line's a problem up front, so they don't really trust the fact that they should probably run the ball. Their offensive line's a problem. Look, the Minnesota Vikings for years have had a lot of talent, right? Justin Jefferson, Delvin Cook. These are guys that you draft in the first round of your fantasy draft. They put up big numbers. Adam Thielen, when he was a stud, he was a very good player. They're a mediocre team, not because they don't have very good skill players. Their offensive line's a travesty. The Rams are falling into that spot right now where they have skill players. They're not on the level of Minnesota's skill players, but their skill players are pretty good. They can't block. And if you can't block in this league, you have problems. You're mediocre. You can't win week to week by not being able to block up front. And the Rams are falling into that problem right now where their offensive line is not equipped to keep up with this league right now.
What has gotten me upset with this division is people are kind of writing it off, even though the Eagles are 5-0, Cowboys are 4-1, Giants are 4-1. I heard people tell me this yesterday. Well, who have the Eagles beaten? I said, well, one, the Vikings are 4-1, and you demolished them, so there you go. I don't want to hear about, the Jaguars win isn't that impressive. Guess what? I think the Eagles may have found the blueprint to beating the Jaguars. And the Jaguars are a team going through growing pains. Houston did the same exact defensive scheme the Eagles did. Lovie Smith is not stupid. So it's a copycat league, right? What's the other big win we thought the Eagles had? Was it not Washington?
Well, they beat the Lions. They beat the Lions, who yesterday looked like they are starting to run out of steam in terms of their offense got completely shut down yesterday after putting up 30-plus points every game. Their offense started to fall apart, but you can't keep playing like that. Their defense just cannot keep them in games, and then the offense has a bad week. Look, the Eagles' schedule is what everybody else's is. There's nobody on these schedules. Nobody has anybody to beat. If you look at every team, you're going to say, well, they haven't beaten anybody. They haven't beaten anybody. Well, the Giants beat Green Bay yesterday. All right, well, at the end of the year, are we going to be looking at Green Bay as this impressive team? Maybe not. Do I think that the Eagles of the three teams have probably played the weakest schedule of the three? Dallas has beaten Cincinnati. They've beaten the Rams. And I guess the Rams, you would say, is their best win. But that Rams team right now is a shell of its Super Bowl self. There's just no depth in this league. The league is just filled with mediocrity and parity all over the place. So every fan base is getting the same conversation. Well, we haven't beaten anybody. Or, Dallas is saying, well, Philly hasn't beaten anybody. And New York is saying, well, Dallas hasn't beaten anybody. And Philly's saying, well, New York, you haven't beaten anybody. Nobody's beaten anybody because there's nobody to beat. The league stinks.
This is how bad the league stinks, Mike. After next week, the Eagles have a bye week. You know who their next three games are? Pittsburgh, Houston, and Washington.
Listen, you're going to go through a whole season of they haven't beaten anybody. That's the facts right now. That's what it is. There's a whole season filled of you haven't beaten anybody because guess what? We talked about it 3 weeks ago. There's nobody on this schedule the whole season that you're going to say, well, that's the game right there where we're going to find out. No. Yesterday might have been the stiffest test you're going to get. That Arizona team, it's a shame they don't have DeAndre Hopkins because you put Hopkins on that offense, that adds a big dimension to that team that they just simply don't have right now. They just don't have that, I need a first down. I mean, Zach Ertz had a big game yesterday, but that losing DeAndre Hopkins, or getting him back, that's going to make them a little bit of a factor maybe in that West if they can show. What is he out for another 2 weeks maybe? I think after week 6 he's come back. Okay, one more game. So they get him back. That adds another dimension. I thought their defense played really well yesterday. I thought Vance Joseph did a good job. He likes the blitz. He didn't over blitz yesterday. He kind of disguised it. He picked and chose his spots when he wanted to blitz. I thought that their defense did a really good job. Their problem is on the defensive side of the ball. Buda Baker is a pretty good player. They just don't have that playmaker. They just don't have that guy, that one guy, like who am I game planning for? But that Arizona team may be the best team that Philly plays the whole season, other than Dallas.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, I thought Arizona was a lot better than people have been giving them credit for leading up to that game. I thought their defense played as well as I thought they could yesterday. You're right. It's a very aggressive defense. Vance Joseph disguises blitz schemes. And look, Jalen Hurts came into that game a 58 pass rating against the blitz. I think he improved. I think he had like an 80 pass rating against the blitz yesterday. So that's pretty good. Jalen Hurts, all things considered. But that offense was moving the ball well too, and they're down guys. They lost James Conner, they lost Darrell Williams yesterday. They were still running the ball effectively with Eno Benjamin. And I said this on a couple Cardinals radio shows and podcasts this week. If you guys are 3-3 when you get DeAndre Hopkins back, look out the NFC West because the rate. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, it's like look no further than what's going on in the baseball. Everybody all year long, the Phillies aren't good enough. They don't do this. They can't do that. The Mets own us. The Mets beat us. The Mets this. The Mets are done. The Phillies are going on. We put way too much stock. Look, we all are products of how we grew up. I'm 45 years old. We grew up where the regular season, it meant everything, and every game felt like they don't matter anymore. The regular season, I hate to say it, it doesn't matter. 162 games, the Phillies won 87, the Mets won 101, the Phillies move on, the Mets are out. Same with football. You just get to certain points of the season healthy. If you're 3-3, you're still in this thing. Everybody is going to be in it. If you're 3-3 after 6 games, it's can I stay healthy and can I get going at the right time, right? We see 9-7 teams win Super Bowls. They get hot at the right time. Why are they 9-7? Well, I don't know. For 6 weeks, I was missing my best receiver. Or, if this happens, we got to stop reading so much into every single game and every single week. Like, if the Eagles were to lose yesterday, people would be in the panic mode, but it really wouldn't have been that. You lost a game on the road against a team that, that week had your number. All right, wash it off, get ready for the next week. That's the NFL now. And that Cardinals team, if they can get to 3-3, you're right, Jeff. With getting Hopkins back, they're going to be a factor in that division because right now they're probably better than the Rams are.
What upsets me as a sports fan, and you know me, Mike, huge baseball fan, huge. I had to hear on social media this weekend, again, the cesspool of all evil, that Major League Baseball has a Mickey Mouse postseason now. And they're getting just like the NFL because you win all these games, you're not getting rewarded. I can't help it the Mets won 101 games and decided they couldn't win a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres. Same with
they did get rewarded. I'd say baseball rewarded the better teams more than any other sport, maybe finally, where the division champions got buys, and these 3-game sets were all in your home ballpark. So I think it's a little watered down, the fact that you have 3 rounds now, and it's a 3, 5, 7, but no, I think they reward it. I mean, football, it's a 1-game situation. The top 2 teams get buys now, right?
Yeah. So this is where I was going. Like, I had to hear this last year. Well, the Eagles wouldn't have made the postseason if they expanded it. Well, they did expand it, and baseball expanded it. I don't know what else you want. There's 14 teams. It's going to be 14 teams in the NFL postseason the entire time. There's going to be mediocre teams in there. But here's the thing. It's not like 2's guaranteed to beat 7. Especially this year.
No, well, the NFC, I actually, and I said this on Inside the, Birch 365 a couple of weeks ago. I'm on there every Wednesday with Jody and John, and I said, I don't think the AFC is all that. I think everybody's saying how great this AFC is. I said, I don't think they're all that good either, other than Buffalo, Kansas City. See, I wasn't a big fan of the NFC West. I thought those teams were all kind of, I don't know who else is out there.
Baltimore?
Cincinnati. What's that? Baltimore's defense is rough, although they played much better last night. Cincinnati's been very other than Buffalo and Kansas City, which team in the AFC do you think is any good?
You know what's crazy about that division, about that comp? The Jets are 2 right now.
They look really good yesterday. Now they're playing a 3rd-string quarterback, but that doesn't mean that the Dolphins' defense should have given up 40 burger. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like against the Jets, for God's sake. So, look, these teams, this also goes back to like how we grew up and watched teams. Like there was a progression. Like you were 4-10. You were 4-12, and then you got to 8-8, and then you were 9-7. Now teams are going from there's 17 games, but you're going from a 4-win team, and you can make the turn in one season to get back into the playoffs. The Eagles did it last year. I think the Giants could be a team that went from misery, 4 wins, I think they had last year, to getting themselves to 9 or 10 wins and maybe being a playoff factor. The Jets might be in the same boat where we have this thought of, well, you can't go from this lousy team for 4, 5, 6 years, and then all of a sudden in 1 year flip it and the Bengals went to the Super Bowl last year, for God's sakes. I mean, so don't be surprised if one of these teams who had a terrible year last year, no expectations, come in and make a surprise. Now, are they going to make a deep run in the playoffs? Probably unlikely. But again, Cincinnati went to the playoffs for the first time last year in a long time and went to the Super Bowl. So one of these teams might be able to. This league is so wide open. It's get into the playoffs. It's who's playing your best. And this league right now has a lot of mediocre, good teams, very, very few great teams.
As a guy who ranks divisions, when I was looking at the schedule before the season, and I'm like, wait a minute. The NFC East gets to play the AFC South and the NFC North. 2 teams that I am just hell-bent on saying that they are the worst divisions in football every single season. And everybody loves to say, oh, the NFC East stink. No, they're the real stinky division. The Bears are terrible. I'm sorry. They're not a good football team. I know they played the Vikings stuff yesterday. They're not a good football team. The Lions can't stop anybody. The Packers aren't that great now. The AFC South. The Titans are in first place. I don't think they deserve to be a first-place team. The Colts don't look good. The Jaguars lost to the Texans. The Texans were the worst team in football going into yesterday. And the NFC East gets to play teams. I mean, it's very possible the Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants can each play those 8 games and roll out of their minimum of 2 record.
Yeah, again, there's no depth in this league. The league stinks, and the Eagles happen to get the worst of the worst divisions, right? I mean, the South, it's been bad for you. It's been very mediocre. I mean, you had Tennessee with 13 wins get the number 1 seed, and nobody really believes in them, and they got knocked out last year. Now, Tennessee, by the way, another cover. I gave you 3 straight covers with Tennessee, man. They're a covered machine. They probably are the most complete team in that division, and that's not saying much. Look, the whole NFC, the whole NFL, forget the NFC, forget the NFC East. Right now, the NFC East is definitively the best division in football. Does that mean that all three teams are great? No, it just shows you the state of the league right now.
You know what's crazy about this whole division and how they're doing? I don't think the Giants are going anywhere. To be honest, I mean, to be honest with you, it's weird. I think they're going to win their fair share of games. I think they're going to be 8-9 wins. I mean, it's very possible if you look at the schedule. But I thought they passed their litmus test yesterday. They got a big one in New York on Sunday against Baltimore. By the way, I'm also getting tired of these teams not having bye weeks after London. I don't think that's right for the Giants.
Yeah, we saw that. So we were talking about this on my show, that how they didn't set it up. I said, well, there's no bye weeks yet. No one's had a bye week. They could move the London games back in the season a little bit so that the teams can have a bye, either going in or getting out of them. More so getting out of them. Look, the Giants yesterday won a game where I don't know who was playing wide receiver. I'm trying to think of some of the guys they were throwing the ball. Was one of them. But my point is, we talk about skill players all the time, and everybody loves skill players. It's a fantasy football society. They have no other than Saquon Barkley, but there's nobody that they want. There's no receivers on that team that you're like, these guys. They got so the Giants just. I thought I love Dable. That was the guy I wanted Philadelphia to hire. They got Sirianni, and he's done a great job, and I can't complain. But Brian Dable was the guy I wanted Philadelphia to hire when they were hiring a coach after Doug Peterson. That guy would have been great in this town, by the way. He loves it. He's fired up. He would have been a perfect face of this organization, Brian Dable. They got the right GM. It shows you everywhere in life, in society, leadership starting from the top matters. The Giants don't have a much different roster. They just have a better coach. They have a better leadership. They have better culture, everything. And they're buying in. They didn't buy into Ben McAdoo. They didn't buy into Pat Shurmur. They didn't buy into Joe Judge. They certainly didn't buy what Dave Gettleman was selling to putting that team together. But they buy into this guy and this regime, and now you're seeing wins translated on the field.
Yeah, they're going to be a problem for every single team they face this year. There's no doubt about that. By the way, Mike, are the Commanders done? I mean, they're 3 back of second place. And Carson Wentz blew the game yesterday. It's a comedy of errors right now.
I think they're done in the East. I think of the 4 teams in the East, yeah, they're the worst in terms of culture. What are we talking about? Culture. To say that Dallas has a better culture than you, that's pretty crazy, but that's the case. Ron Rivera, I think, is maybe a guy. When they hired Ron Rivera, the thought was, the Redskins are finally going to get this right. They're going to turn this ship in the right direction because they got a guy that had been a stabilizer for Carolina. He made Carolina a team that made you buy into them until he didn't, and he got fired because Carolina turned into a dumpster fire, and they're still a dumpster fire. I think Ron Rivera is not. It's not the same. The league has changed on Ron Rivera, right? That whole regime out there was brought in to kind of try to give that team credibility, and it's not working. So you wonder if Ron Rivera's style is just kind of passed by in the NFL right now. They have talent. That was a Washington football team, whatever the hell they're called, Commanders team. Nobody cares what they're called. That's their problem. They're just an irrelevant franchise. This was a great franchise when most of us watching were growing up. The Hogs, you had the people dressed up in the bleachers like the Hogs, and they were the class of the NFC East. They sold that franchise. Snyder's a complete jackass. The place is a cesspool to work, and I think the game is kind of passing Ron Rivera by, and his techniques most likely aren't working right now. Are they the worst team in that division? Yeah. But are they the least talented? I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating, right? I thought for a split second, maybe Carson Wentz can win this game. Maybe. He should have been picked on the throw before he actually threw the interception in the final seconds. But you're right, Mike. Overall, there are 2 coaches right now I think their hot seat is really, really warm. And I won't be surprised if one of them gets fired today, and that's Matt Rule. But Ron Rivera, look, he hasn't had a winning season there. And I said this at the beginning of the year. I don't care if he won the NFC East 2 years ago. They were 7-9. They weren't exactly good. And they're not good this year. And the Giants are better. The Cowboys are better. The Eagles are better. What are you going to do to fix this? Oh, by the way, the fans don't care. That's why I try telling Eagles fans, when you say you take over Washington, everybody takes over Washington. They don't care there.
No, and which is crazy to say. That was a great fan base. By the way, I said 2 weeks ago, Matt Rule is going to be out, and he's probably going to be asked to get out so he can get a college job. There's a lot of them right now that are opening, so he can kind of get himself ready. It's been a bad situation. I like Matt. I think he's a very positive guy. Wrong fit for the NFL. Just not a good NFL fit. I think he'll be a tremendous college coach again, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's out. Well, I don't know when their bye week is, but if it's coming up, I would imagine soon. The Washington situation, the fan base, you've lost them. That area is very transient. It has changed. The stadium stinks. It's in a terrible spot. It's tough to get to. It's not a nice stadium. It's not a cool place to be. And the team's not a cool team to follow. And somewhere along the line, I'm trying to remember where it kind of fell apart for them. It's been so long. They had the RG3 team that seemed like, man, the NFC East is going to have to deal with this RG3 guy for the next 10 years. And then they messed that up. They had the one random team here and there that's kind of – they've won divisions, but they've been like 9-7 division winners. They're not building down there. The front office is a disaster. The ownership group is a joke. This is who they are. And guess what? It's nice to have them in the NFC East.
Yeah, before we close, I actually think they lost the fans when that year Marty Schottenheimer was there. They went 8-8. And I forget I know he got fired at the end of the year. I think he went on a losing streak at the end of the year. And Marty Schottenheimer was still a good coach. And Dan Snyder said, you know what? This is unacceptable. You're fired after 1 year. He goes with the Chargers, rebuilds them, makes them a Super Bowl contender. And Washington decided to bring back the corpse of Joe Gibbs, essentially. And no, it was Steve Spurrier first. That might have been when they lost him, when Steve Spurrier was there.
Been a comedy of errors down there. And again, it goes back to if you have poor leadership and poor organizational setup, your product on the field is going to be poor. And right now, I know, and I wasn't one of them. So all you guys watching, I hope you go back and watch the tapes. Never been a Howie hater. Never. I have no part of me that ever said, I need him gone. He's the problem. I want him gone. Did he have mistakes? Yes. Did they have bad years? One in a handful of – Howie Roseman's been a part of the organization for over 20 years. They haven't had back-to-back losing seasons in any of them. They have the right guy in there. You're not going to win every year. You're not. You're not winning every year. You're going to make mistakes. But how do you rebound from your mistakes? The Eagles have that foundation in place. That's why they're one of the best organizations. Are they the best? No. Are they one of the top 5? Maybe right on the fringe. They're not Washington. Right? They're not Washington. When you have the right guy in place, you don't just cut bait because you had a 4-12 season. Why did you have a 4-12 season? Look into it a little bit more. Okay, let's try to get out of it. Philadelphia has gotten out of this because they have good leadership. They have a good front office. Does everybody love Howie Roseman? Probably not. The players, they probably think, he's lied to me. That's part of the job. But that's why Philadelphia is where they are, and that's why Washington is where they are.
Once again, Mike, I appreciate you coming on. I love having you come on Mondays, especially when it's a Victory Monday. It is a good time right now to be an NFC East fan because this division is good. It's coincidental, right? I've had this show for 5-6 weeks, and the NFC East is good. Maybe we got to keep this up.
Hey, it looks like you might be on to something here, man.
Sounds good. I'll see you at 5:30, Mike.
All right, everybody. See you.